Hi guys, it's Stephanie. Back again. Okay, let me just get situated here. Okay, so I just want to talk about faith. I know a lot of people who are struggling right now. I have a friend who's going through a very hard time, and a lot of us are going through a really hard time. And one of my favorite things to do is to remind myself of God's promises and how faithful He is in those promises. And so one of the chapters that I love to read is Hebrews 11. So I'm just going to read it, and I might stop and talk about some things, but I'm just going to start reading. And if I feel like the Lord's leading me to talk about anything specifically, I will. Hebrews 11. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God. Through faith, we understand the worlds were framed by the word of God. It is through faith that we understand that. So that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. By faith, Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. By faith Enoch was translated, that he should not see death, and was not found, because God had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony, that he pleased God. Now, isn't that interesting? By faith, Enoch had to place his faith that God was going to take him because he believed what God told him, By faith Enoch was translated. By faith he was translated. We need to believe the promises that God gives us. By faith we believe what he says, and we agree with what he says, and we profess what he says, by faith. But without faith it is impossible to please him, for he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. I'm going to read that again. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe he is, right? When we get saved, we have to believe that he is, right? And believe that he is the rewarder of them that diligently seek him. He will reward us, those of us who seek him diligently. When we get to heaven, he is our rewarder. We got to believe that, If you don't believe that, you don't understand that, and you don't know that, then you might believe that Jesus is, but if you don't believe that there's a reward coming your way, you don't have faith in that, then you may not do anything for Jesus. You just believe and go on your merry way. That's what a lot of people do. So he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world, and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. Righteousness which is by faith. How is it by faith? Because we have to believe in Jesus, and our righteousness, the righteousness of God, comes to us through believing in Jesus. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went. That'd be hard to do, right? You just, okay, God, I'm going to pack up my camel and go, but don't know where I'm going. we've done stuff like that sometimes, right? Taking that step out in faith and just doing what you believe God has told you to do and just going for it, right? By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Through faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed, and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. She judged him faithful who had promised. I find it interesting, and these passages give me hope also, because we know these stories. We've read our Bible, most of us, and we know what happened when Jesus told Abraham and Sarah that they were going to have a baby in their old age. We know that Sarah laughed, and then she gave her maid to Abraham to think she was going to help God out, right? Those don't seem like acts of faith or having faith, but in the end, it says she had faith. So in the end, though she went through this journey of doubt and unbelief, she ended up in faith, right? Therefore, and this is verse 12, therefore sprang there even of one, and him as good as dead, so many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which is by the seashore innumerable. We can just think about that. He promised Abraham multitudes and multitudes of people. And if you just think about history and time and how many people are here now and throughout history, it's just amazing and mind-blowing when you think about how many people there really have been and are. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, even though they didn't see the promises then, right then. They were persuaded of them. That's like us right now when we're waiting for our blessed hope, our Redeemer to come and rescue us from this place. We were persuaded of them. They did not receive the promise, but they were persuaded of them, right? And embraced them. They took them into their heart. They didn't just set it on a shelf and say, oh, someday he'll come, someday. They just held it in their heart. They embraced it. That's like Mary. She embraced it in her heart. She took all of the things that she was hearing about Jesus and she held them in her heart, it says, when the wise men came, when the shepherds came, when all this. So anyway, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. That's us. We're strangers and pilgrims on this earth. We do not belong here, and we are not to be here forever. So he's coming. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country. And truly, if they had been mindful of that country from whence they came out, they might have had opportunity to have returned. That's kind of like Lot's wife, She was mindful of the country which they were taking her out of, instead of being mindful of that future hope. And she wanted to return, though she didn't get to return, but she wanted to return to where she came from. We do not want to return to where we came from. We don't want to return back to normal. What was normal anyway? It wasn't that great. It was just whitewashed. And so we don't want to return just because there might be an opportunity to return. We want Jesus to return. But now they desire a better country. Yes, we do. That is in heavenly. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he hath prepared for them a city. Look at that. It's exactly what we've been talking about. But now they desire a better country, that is in heavenly. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he hath prepared for them a city. He's not ashamed to be called our God. He has prepared for us a city, and we are persuaded of these things, and we embrace these things, and we have faith that God's promises are true, and we receive those promises. That's exactly what that paragraph is saying. Hebrews 11, 13 through 16, right there. And then we keep going. By Abraham, when he was tired, offered up Isaac, and he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, a picture of Jesus, right? Of whom it was said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called, accounting that God was able to raise him up, even from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure. So isn't that amazing? Abraham received the promise that God had given him about having multitudes of children, right? So when God told him to sacrifice Isaac, he knew that that promise was already made. So regardless of how it happened, he knew that he was going to have multitudes of children through this line, and he knew that this was his promised son. And he knew that God's promises were true, even to the raising of his son from the dead. That's amazing. So sometimes we look at that Bible story and we go, why on earth would God ask him to sacrifice his son? And why would he go for it, Because he held the promise so strong in his heart. And he knew for a fact, he just knew it. He had so much faith that his son would be there with him no matter what, even if he killed him, because God would raise him up from the dead. That's how much faith he put in his God. And by faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshipped, leaning upon the top of his staff. I didn't even know that one. I did not know that Jacob had blessed both the sons of Joseph. By faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel and gave commandment concerning his bones. He knew that they were not going to stay in Egypt forever. He knew this. And he commanded that they take his bones with them when they leave the country. And they did. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because they saw he was a proper child. They were not afraid of the king's commandment. They were not afraid. They had so much faith that he was an important child, someone that was supposed to be born, that they just were not afraid. And they were able to hide a baby for 3 months. That's amazing. That could only be God. By faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He refused to be of the world. He refused it, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than he to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt. The reproach of Christ greater treasures than the riches of Egypt, and he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. So he knew there was a reward. Again, they just know. They know the word of God. They know he's true. He is not a liar. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. Right? So, wow. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king. We do not fear the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. How do we endure? Oh, we see Jesus. We see Jesus. That is how we endure. That is how we endure. We do not fear what the enemy is doing. We see Jesus in everything. Through faith he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of blood, lest he that destroyed the firstborn should touch them. By faith they passed through the Red Sea. as by dry land, which the Egyptians, essaying to do, were drowned. Those Egyptians didn't pass by faith. They passed by going to try to attack and get someone, thinking they would do it. But the Israelites passed by faith. By faith, passed through the Red Sea. By faith, we will pass through our Red Sea, right? By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they were compassed about 7 days. By faith, the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not, when she had received the spies with peace. So see that? It was because of her faith. It was because of her faith that she did not perish. It said those that did not believe perished, but she had faith, so she did not perish. And what shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and of Barak and of Samson and Jephthah, of David also and Samuel and of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. I know aliens are not talking about aliens, but aliens. You know what I mean. Women received their dead raised to life again. Resurrection. And others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. And others had trial of cruel mocking and scourging, yea, moreover, of bonds and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were swam asunder, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskin and goatskin, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in the deserts and in mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. And these all, having obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise, God having provided some better thing for us, that they without us should not be made perfect. It is by faith you are saved. It is by faith in His promises that we are saved, that we are redeemed, that we are His chosen people, that we are translated to heaven. This is our blessed assurance. Our hope is in Him. And the finality of what He did on the cross will come on that day when He renews our body and we get to be in His presence. You know, I am so excited. I hope that this built up your faith. Go back and read Hebrews 11. Build up your faith. Build up your faith. Keep building up your faith, because that is what we need right now, is faith. Faith that He will heal. Faith that He will do the promises He said He would do. And faith that He will come and take us to be with Him as we look for that better country, right? We look for that better country. We believe for it, and we are persuaded of it, and we embrace it. So I pray that you guys were blessed by this. This was just me kind of reading Hebrews 11 and just gleaning from it the best that I could, what I saw. And I know that the Lord can speak to us in different ways, and something might jump out at you. So if something else jumps out at you and you want to share it in the comments, awesome. Please do so. I pray for you all that you have such a blessed day, and that God would just pour out His Spirit upon you and move in your life and continue to open doors and help you in any area that you need help, that He would be your provider and your healer and your strength in this time. We all need it. We all need strength. We all need help. We all need hope. We all need faith. So faith, my husband was talking about the mustard seed faith the other day, and I thought it was really interesting what he said. That seed grows. Once you plant that seed, it will grow. So you plant that mustard seed of faith and it will grow into a huge tree, right? So plant the mustard seed of faith. And God gives us a measure of faith that we need for that moment. So receive that measure of faith that he gives you. And so anyway, I just pray that you guys would be blessed, and I pray that you have a beautiful day. I will talk to you later.